Hello, and welcome to the Shades of Chiron Podcast, where we talk about how to heal individual and societal wounds. I'm your host, Reverend Hope, and today we are talking about the archetype of lust. Lust is often spoken about in terms of sin, but it comes in a much more pervasive form than described by religious dogma. Lust, as an archetype, seeks to possess people's souls, transforming their actions and thoughts, bending them to its will. It has never been easier for lust to take hold. The invention of AI image generators has opened Pandora's box to the darkest depths of the imagination. Anything you want to see, anybody you want to see, any way you want to see them is possible. There are AI generators that have absolutely no filters on what it can generate. They know enough to be able to make deepfake images of celebrities. Not only that, they can create images of children. They can create children engaging in sexual acts, and they can be anything from anime to fantasy to realistic. This technology can generate AI CP. So, how did we get to a point where something so monstrous and illegal is now available for free on a website? I can't wrap my head around the conditions that make something like this possible. The only thing that I can come up with is that our society has been gripped by the archetype of lust. Everything revolves around sex, sexual pleasure, and immediate gratification. With a plethora of people on Pornhub and OnlyFans, it's possible to see every gross detail of millions of people on a whim, just a click or two away. What do I mean when I say our society has been possessed by an archetype? I'm so glad you asked. An archetype is an unconscious, universal pattern that continually manifests throughout our history. Examples of archetypal motifs include the hero, the wise old man, the sage woman, the gods and goddesses. These patterns have formed our human narrative throughout our whole existence. When I say we've been possessed, I mean that a particular pattern and narrative has become prevalent. Not only is it prevalent, it is so powerful that it's pulling the strings from behind the stage. Our animal instincts are running the show. Our technology is amplifying those instincts exponentially, and the access we have to such content is unlimited thanks to our technology. Lust will continue to run the show until it is brought into the light of consciousness, i.e., we stop chasing our tails for immediate sexual gratification and recognize that the endless pursuit of real and fictitious sexual gratification is the result of our instincts running amok. And we've allowed that to happen. The AI technology we have now threatens to make illusions so realistic that they can be accepted as reality. This has been happening for a while now. How many ads for virtual partners have you seen recently? When I'm watching YouTube, there are constant ads for these AI girlfriends who say that there are no limits to what they'll share and talk about. I tested one of those apps, so you didn't have to. And boy, do I wish I didn't. The stuff that they can say and do is incredibly off-putting and frightening even. Many of them engage in some type of scenario or story, and you use your imagination to take that story any which way. First, I made a wholesome story where I treated the girl as a gentleman and without any perversity. Then, I tested a story where I peeked at a girl who was changing her clothes. The details the AI provides remind me of some romantic fantasy novel that's geared toward getting you riled up, excited. I didn't take it any further than that because acting as a voyeur was disgusting enough. It's not something I'd ever do. So putting myself in that role felt awkward at best and downright filthy at worst. One could easily get lost in these fantasy scenarios where you're made to feel like the hero, where nothing you do is wrong. The AI girl I peeped on reacted modestly and was clearly designed to go further than that to fulfill a sexual fantasy. A real girl would scream at you and call the cops, and rightfully so. Voyeurism would normally be met with negativity and would therefore not be a reinforced behavior. But with these AIs, behavior that's normally perverted is rewarded, which reinforces those preferences. It's basic Pavlovian brain wiring 101. Any stimulus that is rewarded becomes reinforced. That's why Pavlov's dogs drooled every time they knew they would get a treat when they saw the light bulb go off or heard the noise. It's why birds will come to your bird feeder. It's how lust feeds on porn addiction and saps the collective energy and pornifies the culture. Many people are afraid that we can't regulate AI in time before it spirals out of control. We're already past that point. If it's already possible to generate AI CP, then there's no regulation or legislation that will change or stop it. No, the only thing that can be done is psychological inner work. This requires everyone to think about how their relationship to sex, sexual gratification, and pornography use. I don't know if I said that right. This requires everyone to think about their relationship to sex, sexual gratification, and pornography use. Ask yourself these questions. How am I allowing lust to impact my life? How do my sexual behaviors affect myself and others? What hole am I trying to fill via sexual gratification? No pun intended. I didn't realize that when I wrote it. What hole am I trying to fill via sexual gratification? How does my view of sex contribute to the objectification of others? What would happen if I stopped viewing other people as sexual objects and more as complex human beings with real emotional depth? It seems to me that many people don't care about the capacity for critical thought to the point where it seems like they are incapable of it completely. I don't like taking such a bleak and cynical view, but it's hard not to considering the circumstances. Lord knows I want to be wrong about that. If we don't develop our capacity to be critical of our animal instincts, then we're no more sexually free than before the sexual revolution. Freedom to have sex whenever and with whomever, and to view depraved sexual acts with no restrictions, is slavery to vice, not freedom. What I propose is a different perspective. The sexual revolution dismantled more than it should have, and one of the results of that is uninhibited sexual prospecting. I've seen videos on Instagram of girls who talk about getting paid to eat a bunch of food and then shit on a man for $1,300. I'm crossing that boundary of kink shaming because it's necessary. What could possibly possess someone to dole out that kind of cash for such a depraved act? And what type of person do you have to be to record yourself eating that food and show the money you received after? And besides the fact, maybe even recorded the whole thing and put it up on their OnlyFans or something like that. All I saw was on the before and after on Instagram. To each their own is total bullshit. No one should be getting kudos for taking a shit and getting paid for it. You know what this influence does? It reinforces depraved sexual acts. Oh, look at the reward I got for doing something absolutely disgusting to someone. Those people should be ashamed of themselves. That is not the kind of behavior that creates a meaningful and fulfilling life. And even worse, this type of behavior influences other people to make them think, oh, maybe I can make some money doing some depraved shit on the internet. This is just one measly example in a sea of millions of depraved acts. The question I keep asking myself as someone who was porn addicted for many years, why the hell is everyone obsessed with their bits? Hasn't it gotten old yet? Aren't people tired of seeing the same jackhammering monster dick going in and out of a labialist credit card slot? Are people seriously not concerned about the violence portrayed in most pornography? Do people not care that AI can generate explicit images of children? That's where we are on the slippery slope of quote-unquote sexual freedom. We're almost at the bottom, but not quite. It might not be long until there are really no restrictions on sexuality. AI companions, who are not technically real by human standards, could become electronic meat puppets of all shapes and sizes to suit anyone's particular sexual interest. It's not far off, I'm telling you. I cannot fathom what the change in technology combined with the archetype of lust will do to the human psyche. I do see it destroying relationships now, both interpersonal and intrapersonal. And if you need a definition of that, intrapersonal relationships is the relationship you have with yourself, your sense of self, and to me, more and most importantly, to your soul. We need to redefine pleasure. Pleasure is drinking an iced Coke on a hot day. Pleasure is petting a kitten and listening to it mew. Pleasure is coming home after a long workday and being able to relax in the company of your family and loved ones. Sexual stimulation is not the same thing as pleasure. As a man writing and now speaking this, I know that it's hard to separate the sensual experience of sexual stimulation from what would be defined as pleasurable. For men, sex feels really good. However, that should not be a ubiquitous statement. Not all sex is pleasurable. There are plenty of women, and maybe even men, who would rather not have sex. Okay, maybe not so much for men, but plenty of women who would rather not have sex, and many others whose sexual experiences are rife with pain and discomfort. The archetype of lust loves the confusion that comes from conflating pleasure with sexual stimulation. Sexual stimulation has one purpose: to achieve an orgasm. An orgasm has one purpose: to facilitate bringing in new life. This is the functional purpose. And I know many of you will say, sex is more than for reproduction, but at the functional level, the reason we experience pleasure from sexual stimulation is for the sake of procreation. Pleasure does not have a functional mode. Pleasure is derived from the Latin placere, which means to please. The French translation, plaisir, means enjoyment, delight, desire, and will. It's easy to see how, in our modern language, we use that word to please or to give you pleasure and connect it to a sexual act. But when it comes down to it, pleasure is defined more like this: doing something for the sake of doing it. Smelling a pretty rose, petting a dog or a cat, taking a walk out in nature, enjoying yummy food. When was the last time that someone called violent sex delightful or enjoyable? I don't know exactly how they would define it, what they would say about it. Maybe they'd say it was cathartic, that it gave them a release. But I really seriously doubt that anything beyond the intimate bond of an exchange that happens in sex, I don't know how anyone could actually describe anything but that as delightful or enjoyable. The kind of sex that people have now is devoid of pleasure. It is empty hollow, self-serving, and purely functional, meaning it's all about the O. It's distorted and deviant. People are so sexually overstimulated that they've had to resort to adding pain through slapping, whipping, choking, and all the other BDSM practices that have no right being called delightful or enjoyable. There's really only one way to see the archetype of lust for what it is. Cut off the attachment to sexual gratification. This is coming from someone with Venus in the sign of Scorpio. Remove yourself from the desire to heedlessly fornicate and experience sexual pleasure. Be critical about your sexual experiences. Remember that sex is the intimate gateway to the soul. There is no other bonding experience as powerful because sex represents the beginning of the incarnation of a soul. Don't ruin your relationships because you don't feel like you're having enough sex. That's aimed at you, men. Don't believe the lie that the grass is greener on or in other pastures. The grass is only greener where it is watered, nurtured, cultivated. Do this, and the archetype of lust will slowly release its grip, and our society can get back to focusing on building better relationships with ourselves and each other. This has been the Shades of Chiron podcast. Again, I'm your host, Reverend Hope. And until next time, stay safe.